welcome back to Backwards Compatible, a retro gaming podcast here on the Generation S Podcast Network. This is episode 31. I'm Dan Kemp, joined, as almost always, the player 2 to my player 1. But, I don't know, I always let you... What would we do in this case, Lou, for this game?
Well, for me, it would be use the good controller because my second controller that my friends would use, the analog stick fell off.
You did tell me about that.
Yeah, so it was just like a piece of metal.
Yeah.
So you could use it in this. This is like the one game you could use, like any wrestling game, you could use this controller on because you only needed it for your taunts and your special moves.
You're flicking the side of it for that.
Yeah.
So that's fair. All right, good point. Well, there you go. So I always give him the good controller for wrestling games. It's Lou Carnivale. Welcome back, buddy.
Good to be back.
And sorry about last week. If you follow us on Threads at Backwards Compatible Podcast, you would have seen that we were just having some scheduling conflicts, but we were going to record this episode last week. We're doing it now, and we are also changing the release schedule. You may notice this episode has now come out on a Friday. That's for two reasons. One, it just gives us more buffer if we do have scheduling issues, because normally we record on a Monday night, and then I'm putting the episode out by Wednesday, which means I really only have Tuesday to put this together, and that's assuming that we're both available on Monday, and that's not always the case. And so we figured we still plan to record early in the week, but we've got a few days buffer just in case. Plus, I figure it's Friday. You know, it's something to look forward to like the weekend. You know what I'm saying? People can pop on a podcast, have it ready to go for the next week or whatever. I don't know. Either way, it was we talked it over. This just makes sense. So that's what's going to happen. So every Friday now, brand new episodes of Backwards Compatible. Or at least we hope for every Friday. We may take, again, breaks every now and again, especially now that the holidays are coming up and Thanksgiving, you know, all that fun stuff. And speaking of which, this game was released, in fact, 24 years ago this month.
Yeah.
You know, we were thinking 25th anniversary, no, 24th, but it's close enough.
Close enough.
You know, and it's funny because it's been over 6 months since we did a wrestling game, so I figured that's okay, right? You know, we can jump back in.
Yeah, and it's also the 25th of the event that led to the game.
That's fair, too. There you go. So there's the 25th anniversary. We're talking WWF No Mercy on the Nintendo 64. It is considered by many, and justifiably so, the greatest wrestling game of all time. And I know I've asked you this before, Lou, but I'm going to ask you again. Do you consider this to be the greatest wrestling game of all time or not?
It could be. I feel like there's always three answers. It's either this, WrestleMania, or Here Comes the Pain. Those are like the top tier three. And Revenge. I would say those are the four gold standards for what everybody talks about. And everything else after Here Comes the Pain, I feel like it's just, they all blend together. Nothing really jumps out.
They do. And you're 100% right. I think Here Comes the Pain was the last one that felt like a unique experience. You know what I mean? Where they weren't reusing, because you do notice that with the later SmackDown versus Raw and then the WWE and 2K games, like they're reusing a lot of the same moves and they're not adding much more. Commentary's kind of the same every year. So yeah, they bleed together. I'm trying to remember, like, because we would talk about, like, I remember, like, I will say, when we were in college and we were buying the games every year, I felt like it was a big deal to go from 2007 to 2008, because then you had ECW, and then 2009 you had the tag team stuff that they added in, like the hot tags, which are gone again, I think. But I think it was around, like, 2010 to, like, 2013, like, somewhere in the middle there, if someone were to show me a screenshot, I couldn't tell you what game it was from. You know what I mean?
I think when they went to like the 360 era, the big thing was the custom music. That was a big thing.
But then they took that away when they went to the following
the GameCube games I think are underrated, but that's another story for another day.
Oh, we'll definitely cover the GameCube wrestling games in the future. Cause
I do too.
Or most of them.
Most of them I like. And you know, the hard drive on the 360 that gave you the music was a great feature. And then I think it was 12 or 13 gave you the online community, and that was big. I think it was 12 with Orton on the cover.
It might have even been early. No, because I remember when I was living in New York, I bought DLC.
No, I'm talking about like
And so
being
that
able to upload like community creations.
Oh, the community creations. Yes, I think that's probably correct. It was 12. Might have even been 11,
Maybe.
honestly.
It was one of those. It wasn't SmackDown versus
yeah.
Raw for like 10 years straight, which was stupid.
Yeah.
Once they did that, that was to me was like the last big thing, and then they all from that just kind of blended. Very, very Madden-esque.
Yes, which and speaking of Madden, I thought about this just the other day. Actually, you know how back in 2019 they had Madden 25. Well, now what's coming out for next year's game? What do they call it? Madden 25.
Yeah.
So that's totally not confusing.
Yeah, Mortal Kombat 1, and Mortal Kombat 1.
Yeah, whatever. I mean, so it's been done before, I guess, But hey, that was the future. This is the past. We're talking No Mercy, and I love this game. I do. It's to me probably tied with Revenge as far as my favorite N64 wrestling games. And I do, again, I love that when you say I played the N64 wrestling games, everybody knows you're not talking about ECW Hardcore Revolution and WWF Attitude. Like, you just know it because they're trash. Let's be honest. But fortunately, I did not have a chance to find anywhere to play this game before we recorded today, but we did play it together just a month ago or 2 months ago when I was up there visiting. So it's somewhat fresh in my head, and I played the shit out of this game back in the day. So there's not much I'm going to have to, pull out of the old memory bank that it's not sitting close to the surface. Now, listen, before we get into all that, folks, just a reminder, if you want to interact with us here on the show, you can text us by clicking the link in the episode description. We'd love to give you a shout-out. If you have game suggestions or any just kind of feedback, feel free to share it. We'd love to interact with you on there. That will be in the episode description if you want to interact with the show by shooting us a text message. Now, Lou, we were just talking before we started recording. We're dead-ass tired today. We're going to make the best of this.
It's true.
Yeah, well, we're adults. We're working adults. It's just like most of our listeners, I imagine. We've got busy lives. But have you had a chance to play anything over the last couple of weeks since we last talked?
Things I didn't like.
Really?
Yeah, I think I texted you. I'm just like, I'm in between games. I'm not really feeling it. Star Wars Outlaws. I think last time I was on, I said I rented it.
Yeah.
It's just one of those games. Here we are. It's 8:20 at night. And two guys that working and are married and have families. And just like, I'm tired. That's one of those games where I don't have time.
It's like a Red Dead Redemption.
I feel like this could be a fun game. I gotta sneak. I can't make noise. I gotta redo the mission. Like, I don't have time. Like, it's almost like, when you're being briefed, you're at work and you're being briefed by a coworker. It's like, okay, dude, just like get to the point, please.
Right.
This is one of those games. Like, I don't have time. I don't want to sneak. Like, just let me play the game. Nope, I gotta sneak again. Okay, we're done. Like, I actually turned it off. Like, not that it was bad. It was just like, I don't have time. We're done.
Yeah.
Move on.
I definitely get that like that with some games where I'm just like, okay, I'm enjoying it up until I'm like, okay, I'm ready to move on, but I want to beat it. If I'm close to the end, I'm like, I have to beat it. Just let's get there. Okay, so Outlaws, it sounds like, at a different phase of life or time of year, maybe you could enjoy it a little bit more.
Yes,
than
absolutely.
Like, not a bad game, just not one that you're able to enjoy.
Not right now.
Okay.
The
Anything
time.
else?
I went and played Gears of War.
Yeah, see, and that's what I was gonna say. I started playing Gears of War.
Reliable.
The first one, dude. Okay, I don't know if I just suck at them now, but holy shit! And I had it on like
okay.
No, I guess it was hard.
So
it was hardcore mode, I guess.
So I started. I'm like, I'm going to the beginning. I'm playing with Judgment, and you're like, yeah, it's the beginning for now. I'm like, oh shit, you're right. So the next one comes out.
Yeah,
and that's a whole other issue. I'm gonna have to do I buy a whole game system for one game? Anyway. I played Gears of War Judgment, and I haven't played it. I only played through that one time.
Yeah.
And I remember when it came out, I was like, oh, it's good, but it's not great. I'm like, it's good. It's very good.
Yeah. What was the complaint? It was just no Marcus, and that's why?
Yeah, or there was nothing new about it, which there really isn't. There's nothing really new.
I feel like there's not a lot new with most Gears of War. There's a couple of new things, but for the most part, if you can pick it up and play it if you know how to play it. That's what you want, though.
Going off of Star Wars Outlaws, where it's like, come on, get to the point. Let's go. This Gears. Go get them. Like,
it throws you
let's
right
go.
in.
I know what to do. I know how to shoot. I know how to throw my grenades. that's what I'm looking. That it literally was a breath of fresh air in terms of I don't want to sit here and do this right now. I just want to go, 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 go. So I did Judgment, and I'm like, all right, I'm gonna go play Gears 1, and I got my ass kicked.
All right, so I'm not crazy. Like I so many times would just get attacked by the what are those little guys
Wretches.
called? The wretches. And like I remember like I seem to remember bleeding out and like somebody coming to help me, but I don't know if that's just in single player. Like I just kept dying, and like there were, and I had it on like whatever like was between normal and hard. Like it was like the one that says you can pull off a headshot. I'm like, oh, I can, yeah, okay, that's probably perfect for me. And I'm like, guys, kicking my ass.
Well, how about this? With Judgment, I beat it in one day, in one sitting.
Oh wow!
I didn't do any of the side missions. I didn't look for collectibles. Like I just played the game. I think I was so pissed off at Outlaws that I'm like, I'm gonna beat this, and I didn't die, and I beat it. I'm like, like, yeah, the mojo's back. Here we go, Gears of War 1, and it's gone.
How far are you into it now that you started playing?
I stopped playing it.
Oh, you did. It's too
and
hard.
I just went to Gears 2.
Oh god! Now I'm gonna beat it. I'm gonna go through. I'm playing Ultimate Edition, so the one they re-released for Xbox.
I did play that one.
Although there's not much different from what I remember, other than like, and even then, like I'm looking at the graphics of the Xbox 360 version, and I'm like, I kind of prefer it in some of the scenes.
Yeah,
like it looks good. It holds up.
It does.
You know, I noticed that some of the cutscenes were changed, like how like things were like the scene where what's his face, like Kim or Sergeant Kim, whatever his name was, that dies. Yeah, but like they show it very differently in the Ultimate Edition versus the way I remember it happening in the 360 game, and I'm like, that looks different than I remember. So I pulled it up and looked it up, and I watched the cutscene from the Xbox 360, and it's totally different. There's less dialogue. The lighting is different, and it threw me off. So there are some improvements, but again, gameplay-wise, it's the exact same. It feels
Gears
like it always did.
Is tough.
Okay, so it's not just me. That's validated. I appreciate
you go
that.
play Gears 2, you'll be like, ooh, this is nice.
Breezing through. Yeah. All right. Well, good. So other than Gears, though, I have been playing. I beat a couple of games over the last week. I beat. I think I got that Halloween platformer game where you play as Michael Myers. It plays a lot like a Castlevania game, and it's really good. So I beat that. Really was super hard. And then I beat this other game, Unmetal, the Metal Gear Solid parody game. I finally went back and I beat that. And then, I started playing Gears of War, so I'll be focusing on that as far as the next game I fully beat. And then still playing Mario Party with the kids. They're loving it, man. So it's fun watching them play through. They love doing the mini games, so they'll go to it's called the Mountain Mini Games, where they just play the mini games, and it's cool because they're digging the ones that we used to play as kids, and it's fun to watch. You know what I mean? Like they love the jump rope one with the fire, the fire jump rope. They love that. They're not good at it, but they love it. So it's wild because again, that's something that like is from a vivid part of my childhood that my kids are now enjoying with me, and it's just the greatest thing. So anyway, that's what I've been playing. That's what you've been playing. You want to talk WWF No Mercy?
Let's do it.
Let's do it. Let's talk about the game.
Diggity dog. Breaking. Diggity dog. Breaking.
And as I said, we're talking WWF No Mercy, released in November of 2000. And it was published by THQ, developed by Aki, which is the winning combination when it comes to wrestling games. At least it was back in the late 90s. So, I don't know, man. This is one of those games where, like, there's so much we could talk about, but it's also one of those that, like, if you're listening to this and you know this game, then you know. You know what we're going to say, because everyone says the same thing as far as these types of wrestling games. Let me ask you this, because this is what's going to be unique about it, right? What was your first memory of this game?
Playing it and going, where are the entrances?
Okay, all right.
So here's the thing. I'm not, like, married to this game. I'm a WrestleMania guy.
You have mentioned it, yeah. Because there's a lot of things they took out of this game. Now, there's a lot of things they put into this game to kind of, in my opinion, make up for it, but they did take out some details like entrances, championship history, and whole like playing in championship matches in exhibition mode, right? That was another one. What else is missing that you remember?
The gameplay itself slows down.
Okay. Gotcha.
And I feel like
So-
everything's darker. Like the arenas are darker looking.
Yeah.
So I mean, yes, it's a great game. It's an amazing game. I'm a WrestleMania guy. I know
Yeah.
it's got the ladder matches, and that's what this whole game is built around. It's literally called No Mercy because
Yeah.
of the tag team. And maybe we should probably touch on that how big this match was in October of '99 in the WWF. That they literally
Yeah.
made a video game titled off of one match.
So the match was No Mercy. It was a ladder match. I did not realize
so
that.
the match was Edge and Christian versus the Hardys. It was a tag team ladder match. I don't know why I remember this. And this is no research, folks. No research. It was at the Gund Arena in Cleveland, which is where the Cavaliers play. Fun fact, that was the arena where Vince bought WCW.
Oh, okay.
And it may have been the arena where Invasion was. Don't quote me on that one, but I know it's definitely where he bought WCW. The match was nothing like they had ever seen in the WWF before. They had them kind of in ECW, but it wasn't in WCW. So this was something that was absolutely amazing. Those two teams tore the house down to the point where they got a standing ovation the next night on Raw.
This was it was the Hardys versus Edge and Christian.
They got a standing ovation the next night on Raw. So that's how big this match was.
Yeah.
This match was so big that they made this video game have a ladder match, and they named it No Mercy, off of the No Mercy ladder match from '99. So that's why it's called No Mercy, and that was the big selling point of this, and it worked. It was a ladder match. By today's standards, it's not very good, but at the time, it was like, what is this? This is amazing.
And it was, because there's been plenty of wrestling games since then that have had ladder matches, and they're okay. I think sometimes a little tedious, but back then, you're right, man. The fact that you could pick up a ladder and hit somebody with a ladder and then set it up and climb it, like that was a big deal back then. Not only that, but didn't they have, was Hell in a Cell in this game, or was it just a cage match? Okay, so they had cage matches, but not Hell in a Cell. Still, like, just like the different, and that was, I think, what people loved about this game over, again, like a WrestleMania 2000 or WCW Revenge, was that they did add a lot more features. But I think, to your point, I think everything they put in, they basically push this engine to its absolute limits. And so I think things like gameplay absolutely suffered because of it.
Yes, there was no doubt that this was it was busting at the seams. The cartridge, that's why they took out the entrances. They couldn't fit them. They could not fit. If you look at it from the standpoint of just the entrances in general, the music didn't get better. The Trons didn't get better. And the actual entrances themselves were cut down by 2/3. You figure an entrance on the N64 days on WrestleMania, it was, them coming out of the stage was part one, them walking to the ring was part two, and then part three was in the ring. There are some entrances where it's just the guy walking for 5 seconds.
Yeah.
All right, AEW did that, and they were coming at them with pitchforks.
I would agree, but I have a counter argument because here's the thing. After a while, me personally, I'm skipping the entrances anyway. I don't watch the entrances every time. So for something like that, where like even like in WWE 2K, like these are beautiful entrances. Hell, you can create your own entrances for your guys, and they look great. But even then, I'm skipping them after the second or third time. You know what I'm saying? So like, I can't see, I miss entrances. Yeah, but like, dude, do you really watch them every single time? Like, I feel like in my opinion, they added more to like make up for the lack of full entrances. You still had music, you still had Trons, but then it just got you right into the action.
Sure.
That's my perspective.
And I agree that, there are some times that you do skip the entrances. I feel like I would skip the entrances more like story mode. If I'm playing I'm playing as Steve Austin, I don't need to see his entrance for the 20th time. But I get that itch, and I feel like, let me reenact WrestleMania from last year because it's WrestleMania season. I do want to watch the entrances.
And that's fair. And you obviously, with WrestleMania 2000, you absolutely can. And again, to your point, I think the bigger downside versus WrestleMania is the gameplay is a little more sluggish. Not much, but it definitely does slow down, especially when you've got some crazy stuff going on. So I don't know. Like, how do we want to jump
We
into
can
this?
start
'Cause
with the roster. The roster is just,
dude. Yeah,
it's insane.
I think it's So I took notes here. So it's one of the most extensive rosters of any wrestling game at the time, especially. I think there's over 50 characters that you could play as, which is absolutely insane. I don't know how it compares to WrestleMania 2000. I think there was a few. I mean, because WrestleMania 2000 had a pretty decent roster as well.
It did. It did. But this
yeah.
is the attitude game.
Yes.
This is
Yeah.
it. I mean, just the addition of not even the addition of like the characters in general, not in the game, but in general, are more rounded out. Like the Hardys are like last minute additions. It feels like in WrestleMania 2000. They're not flushed out.
Oh right, yeah.
And
yeah.
here they're the Hardys and Edge and Christian. Is the APA. It's not really the Acolytes anymore. So it's like this. I feel like that is also why this game is so beloved. Even though those 6 individuals, those 3 teams I just mentioned, are all in WrestleMania, it's not the version that people associate with the Attitude Era. People associate the Hardys of this era, not the Hardys with Michael Hayes. The APA is the APA, not the Acolytes. Edge and Christian as being, the schmucks that they are, not the Brood Edge and Christian. So I think that helps it also, is characters are more fleshed out, and there's bigger characters that have been added, like Kurt Angle's in this.
Well, Kurt Angle, there's several. There's Kurt Angle, the Dudleys.
Yeah, the Dudleys, yep.
Taz is in this one. Hell, the other one I was going to say was Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, and Saturn.
Yeah.
That's huge, because this was around the time, again, you still had the Monday Night Wars going on. You could all of a sudden, if you wanted to, do like a WCW thing with those guys. You know what I mean? Because you had Jericho, Malenko, Benoit, Guerrero, who I'm trying to think who else you could have used, but like those are the big ones that I can think of. But like all of a sudden you could do a WCW thing. Plus, obviously, and we'll talk about create character mode, but like you could do creative wrestlers with it. So like you had all these wrestlers. Like, dude, it was such an extensive roster. Not to mention you could play as the commentators. You could play as a lot of the valets, the women wrestlers. If you had enough money in the SmackDown Mall, you could play as a hoe.
Yeah, the SmackDown.
Which I never bought, by the way.
Mall.
SmackDown Mall.
Sacco.
Did you ever? It's cooking. Did you? Sorry, we're totally stimming the song. Did you ever unlock the hoe? By the way, I never. Did.
I know it.
I did look it up.
I know in WrestleMania 2000, like it was a skin, so to speak, and she was a brunette.
Yeah.
So guess who she became? There you go.
Marie.
Hey, she
There
was
it is.
back 2 weeks ago. That was fantastic.
She was. If you followed WWE, you saw the return of Dawn Marie and Rhino and RVD.
great.
And anyone else? Was there anyone else?
Bubba,
Devon. Bubba. Okay.
Apparently, Steve Carino was in a backstage segment that's like blew my mind.
Oh, nice. There you go. So yeah, I mean the roster in this is incredible, and of course, just like the previous wrestling games, they've got 4 attire slots, which you can fully customize, even more so now than in, I think, even compared to WrestleMania 2000, right? Like you can do full on.
Yeah, and everybody had a referee outfit because it was guest referee.
That's right. That was another new mode they brought in, was guest referee, which was amazing as well. And if you played the SmackDown, because I'm trying to think, did the first SmackDown game, it had to have come out before this?
Yeah,
one.
I believe the first SmackDown game came out, and that was a little rough around the edges too. Foundation was.
Oh, it was. It's funny too because then the second SmackDown game came out like less than a year later, and it was like way better. Whereas I think this one even came out, was it less than a year after WrestleMania 2000?
I think it was.
Or was it like maybe right about a year? But either way, I would say like the jump in just like everything was so massive from the 2 games that they do feel like 2 different games. Whereas honestly, if I'm playing SmackDown or SmackDown 2, sometimes I can't tell unless it's like I'm playing as a certain character that I know wasn't around in the first.
Just
SmackDown
go with Kurt
game.
Angle.
Like
it's Kurt Angle in it or
Angle
not?
or Taz. Yeah, or the other thing, like again, going back to No Mercy, was like this was one of the first games to have like American Badass Undertaker,
Yeah.
right? versus Ministry Taker. So yeah, this was like the perfect representation of WWF in the year 2000. This was the game. I'm trying to think. Was there any big characters at the time that were not in this game?
I think
that,
the big omission is Big Show.
That's the only one, and I think that wasn't that like Punishment actually, or something along those lines, or no, he was
He
gone
was in
at the time for a
OVW.
little bit. He was
in developmental.
That's what it was.
Well, for kids, OVW was NXT like 25 years ago.
Yeah. And basically, from what I understand, they had sent him down because he was like getting fat. So they said you need to go lose weight, and he didn't. So yeah, you're right. He was totally out, and of course, you could create him very easily.
Yeah, he's completely in the game.
Yeah, you just had to go find his stuff. He's got all his moves, and that was the other thing I loved about this too. And again, we'll dive deeper into the create modes here in a minute. But like, you had all of the moves, and I think even some of the face scans of like WCW, maybe not WCW, but like definitely the old WWF WrestleMania. But like, you had all the moves from the earlier games, so you could create Booker T very easily. His axe kick is in the game. You could you know what I mean, or the Big Show's choke slam or whatever. It was all there. So if you weren't satisfied with the 50-plus wrestlers that you could play as by default, or actually, I'm trying to remember, because I've never actually played this game without, no, I guess I have. Like, all the wrestlers are there for the most part, except for a couple, right?
Yeah.
There's like a few that you can buy.
Yeah, there was
or
a few you
unlock.
could buy. I think Shamrock's in the game, too. I think he was one you had to buy.
It was Shamrock, Shawn Michaels, Andre the Giant was a big one.
Which
That was,
blew
like,
my
hard
mind.
one.
I'm like, well, he's not, he's not alive. That was like the first legend in a game that I remember.
I think so. And it's funny, too, because I never talked about my first memories of this game. I saw it in a magazine, actually. It was a magazine that was the same, and I think they also had, like, WWF SmackDown in there or whatever. But, like, I saw No Mercy. I was in a Walmart, and I saw the magazine. And, like, they were talking about this new No Mercy. I was like, oh, shit. And they hyped up Andre the Giant. I'm like, that's crazy. Because, yeah, I even knew him at the time. And he was a legend. So yeah, that was amazing. So Shawn Michaels, Ken Shamrock, were the other Cactus Jack, or were like for the Faces of Foley unlockable?
I believe they were.
Okay, so maybe that as well. So there's a couple, and there was a few ways you could get them. So one is you could earn money by playing the game and use the in-game currency to unlock stuff, or you could play. Well, no, you could create it, but there's what's that mode? Was it Slobber Knocker mode, or what was it called? It was like basically like an endless battle royal where like they would sometimes come out, and if you eliminated them, then you would unlock
correct.
them.
I do remember that.
I forget what that was called. It was like survival.
Yes.
I think it was called survival. Did you ever play that
Sure
mode?
I did, yeah.
Oh god, I used to love that because it was basically like the battle royal mode from WCW where they would keep coming in, and like you'd have to knock them out, and like if you get a flow of it, it's pretty easy to eliminate those wrestlers, and so you could, if you got really good at it, you could absolutely unlock Shamrock and all the wrestlers. So I love that. All right, so then yeah, amazing roster, 2 thumbs up there. Let's talk about the different modes because you've got your standards, singles, tags, triple threat. I think fatal 4-way, right?
Yeah,
Isn't
if
this?
it wasn't, you could just do a battle royal with 4 people.
That's right. Yeah. And you can make it so that like there's no over the top
Yep.
rope. And then of course within those you've got not only just like regular rules, you've got hardcore, you've got ladder, you've got cage, and I'm trying to. Okay, so this is where my memory's fuzzy. Could you go backstage in this game
Yes.
or no?
Yes.
Yes, you could. That's right, because I remember like one of the places was like the APA's bar,
Yeah.
right? And you could like
Yeah.
pile drive and throw a pool
Yeah.
tape. I do remember that. So yeah, dude, this game had like it had so much.
did have a
So
lot.
again, I'll go back to I don't need full entrances. I'd rather have a backstage brawl. You know what I'm saying?
Especially
Because
with
like
all those
there's so much
ECW
more.
guys I was able to play as.
Dude, I'm saying, man. Like, and it's oh my god. So yeah, so you had all these different. Did you have a favorite match type that you would play as with friends?
No,
or
but I
whatever?
remember I remember what characters I would play with. And you're not going to be surprised by any of these choices.
All right, yeah.
So
lay it
tag team, I was going with the Dudleys. We didn't
course,
have any
yeah.
tie-dye, which stunk, but
out. Yeah, they went right to camo. They'd already been out
Yeah.
for a while. at this point.
they're in SmackDown 2, they have the camo. Excuse me, the tie-dye.
I thought it was SmackDown 1 they had these.
Is it SmackDown 1?
Yeah, SmackDown 2 I think they had.
Really? I know there is a
Yeah.
game with them with the tie-dye.
Well, and it's funny because this game came out at the time that is now if anyone here listens to wrestling or watches wrestling bios on YouTube, this is the era that he is in discussing now. Is like the early 2000s of WWF.
WCW is god awful.
It's god awful.
I didn't realize how bad
yeah.
WCW was.
Oh, it's bad, especially when you go back and just look at it. But my point is, on the WWF side, we're barely into. We just finished the Rumble 2000, and the Dudleys are already wearing.
And you know what's
in this game?
You know what's interesting is I didn't even realize this. I'm doing my ECW rewatch, and I'm about up to summer of '99, so I'm right behind this. So I'm kind of the Dudleys are about to go.
Yeah,
I just watched Hardcore Heaven, which is May of '99, and the Dudleys are the champs, and they're going. And Taz is going to go a couple months after that. So it's crazy to think about that these guys a year later are going to be in a WWF game.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's nuts. So, yeah, you've got all these amazing game modes. Now, I think honestly, I was always a singles guy as far as like just singles matches, hardcore. Like weapons are fine, but like one-on-one. But I know anytime you and I play, we always love to do the multi-man matches, just kind of and we would always try to like not team up, and we would do it with my friends too. Like, all right, don't attack me until we've eliminated all the computer guys. You know what I mean? That was the other thing I'll say about this game too. For the most part, not really that hard of a game.
No.
Not super difficult. And it could be just because I know how to play it, and it's I played it so long that it wasn't difficult. But in general, not a lot of challenge. I don't even know if there was a hard mode.
I'm sure there was, but even the story modes were good because they had branching storylines, which was fun.
Yeah. Yes.
But it's also it's also fun to take
yeah.
somebody like Taka Michinoku for the world title.
Absolutely, it is, and that was the amazing thing back then. Hell, you could take Jim Ross and get
slobber knocker.
Absolutely. One of the other things that I want to mention on the gameplay side, as far as improvements go, we talked about all the match types and, of course, the roster. I love the fact that they have fully brought in, like, weight classes now.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Like, before, it didn't really matter what your guy looked like. You could body slam anyone. It didn't matter. Now, if you're a little guy, like, let's say a Jeff Hardy or a Taka Michinoku, as an example, and you're fighting against Viscera, and you want to body slam that guy, you got to, like, tap that button to try to lift it. And if you can't do it, you're done. You're stunned at that point. And when I loved it so much because I love that there were certain sound effects that have carried over from all the games. Like when they take a bump, there's like two distinct sounds I remember for like a regular slam and like the finisher slam. But now when you slam a super heavyweight, it's a totally different like boom. Like
when I'm playing Gears of War.
Yeah, exactly. It sounds like a boomer in Gears of War. Like, it's legit, like, you can almost hear the ring shake, and it's the coolest thing ever. So I love that, and I love that other wrestling games have absolutely tried to do the weight class thing. Not nearly as well. I think this was the best way to do it. Like, if you try really hard and get all your strength, you can lift a guy, right? That's the whole point. So I thought that was really cool. But yeah, let's talk about the story mode, because there was different, basically, so lay it out, because my memory's fuzzy. Like you picked a different championship to go after, and then
and there were different, roads to the story mode. You win the first match, you go a certain way. You lose the first match, you go way section A, section B. There were many different paths, so that's what made it unique. Also, so you could be the traditional. Them's going to win everything, which most people would do. And then, you could lose a match here and there, and you were getting different story modes. You were getting different options. You were getting a different presentation for, the same superstar. If you wanted to play as The Rock, you could have potentially 2 to 3 different story modes. Just choosing what matches, or maybe not choosing what matches you legitimately did lose. And they even had a light heavyweight title in this, so it was. They gave it a lot of love. They put a lot of love into this game, which was different because WCW Revenge was just pick your title, fight against a bunch of guys, and fight the champion at the end. Road to WrestleMania was very long, very detailed. No, I should say very detailed. It was very long and semi-detailed. These were shorter, but more entertainment.
Well, because it was more like what you saw on TV, and like you said, even now, like I feel like they've gone away from the branching storylines. Now it's like, oh, if you don't win the match, you got to try again, and you have to hit certain objectives. And it's like that's almost not fun. I kind of liked it when you could lose a match, but like that doesn't mean you lose. Like, it just means it goes a different path, and you're still going to get to the championship potential. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
So I think. I don't know. Yeah, I think the other one that did it really well, and again, it's another one that's been revered over the years, was Here Comes the Pain.
Yes.
Had a very good story. But I think it borrowed a lot from this.
But also the roster.
That too.
I feel like the roster, no matter what, is the number one thing when looking at a wrestling game. Especially once you get to the PS2 era. Once you get to like Just Bring It, like they're all good games for the most part. There are some that have their glitches for the most part. Again, not talking about like the Xbox games, which were god awful. Talking about the mainline WWF games. And to me, the mainline WWF games were the N64 games and then the PS2 and onward games.
Yeah.
Once you get, because the N64 wrestling games, WrestleMania 2000 and No Mercy, and then to the PS2, Just Bring It, and so forth and so on. They're all good games, but the number one thing is the roster. So WrestleMania 2000 had a good roster, but No Mercy had a great roster.
Yes.
The PS2 games all had a good roster, but then you got to Here Comes the Pain. That was a great roster.
Yeah.
And it was just an exorbitant amount of characters in that. You look at the GameCube games, they're not like WrestleMania 18. It's not a huge roster. It's not a great game, but WrestleMania 19 is not the greatest game, but the roster at the time, at least, was like, it's a small roster, but it's like, holy crap. It's like there's a few people in here that really don't belong, like Al Snow and Chris Nowinski, and don't you dare say Dawn Marie, because she belongs there. But you just look at that roster in that capsule of time, like, oh my God, there's Scott Steiner, there's Goldberg, there's obviously The Rock and Steve Austin. The Here Comes the Pain was a little bit of everything. It was the current guy, it was the Ruthless Aggression era, it was the Attitude era, it was WCW, it was ECW, and it was Legends. And that was the first time you had that real melting pot. Whereas No Mercy was just a time capsule of that era that now when you buy these games now, these are like the bonus characters. These are the DLCs that we're buying now or getting now or people are creating is the guys that were in these games. Like, you look up the most downloaded community creations other than CM Punk. It's the Hardys. It's the Dudleys. It's, Jericho. It's the guys from this era. Kurt Angle, Taz. It's the guy Eddie Guerrero. It's these guys now in this game. So this game has the collection of characters that are so beloved that if they're not in these games now, when it launches, people are willing to pay money extra to get them. And if they're not even available to purchase, they're the number one hits on the community creations. So I feel like the rosters are the number one thing outside of the core gameplay. You can have a very basic game, but if the characters are good, it's still going to be revered over something that's, it's a super amazing roster, but the gameplay is terrible.
Yes. Yep. No, you hit the nail on the head. And let's start talking about it. If you weren't satisfied with the roster here, go make your own, man. This was the first, I would say this was, at the time, the best creative wrestler mode that ever existed. Yeah. I would say the only time it got better was by the time you got to, like, SmackDown. Actually, no, I'm trying to think. SmackDown Shut Your Mouth was the first good one after this, I would argue, on the PS2. But this was incredible. So basically, for the first time in an N64 wrestling game, at least from this engine, you could, because like with Revenge, it was cool because you could like change outfits and colors, but it was pretty limited with what you could do with those attires. Like if it wasn't like you could change boots and then trunks and then elbow pads. It was like, no, you were set with, you want to wear Sting's singlet or Hollywood Hogan's tights or whatever. Like that was it. You could change your color a little bit, not a lot. There wasn't a lot of colors, but you could sort of change the colors. But it was something. It was a big deal. WrestleMania 2000 had a create mode, but again, I feel like the attire options were pretty limited as far as what you could do with them, and even with like modifying existing wrestlers' attires.
You could mix and match, though. It really is a natural progression.
That's true.
It went from, like you said, you have Sting singlets, that's it. That's what you're getting. Then to, well, you want Sting singlet, but you could do that, and then you could change the boots to do whatever you want.
Yes. So in No Mercy, when you create a wrestler, you start off with, is it literally like over 100 different faces you can choose from? It's some crazy. So basically, they would do the face scans for all the wrestlers from this game, No Mercy, that you could make as your character's face. But then it had all the face scans from WrestleMania 2000 on top of that, and then I think even had like the Virtual Pro, because this game is also in Japan. The engine used for this game is for a game called Virtual Pro Wrestling on the N64 over in Japan, and it's basically like New Japan Wrestling and whatnot. So I think there's even face scans from like Japanese wrestlers in this game. So it's crazy. And then you've got all the different facial hair. You've got all the different body types that you can choose. You can make them fat. You can make them skinny. You can make them tall. Yeah, because I think you can adjust height in this game,
yes,
right?
You can.
Was height one of the... I thought so. And then again, you could jump into their outfits, their gloves, their elbow pads, their knees, their knee pads, their pants, tights, trunks, whatever you can think of, it's there. And then you can change all the colors. So, I mean, it's not perfect, obviously. It's not like now where, like, you download a wrestler from somebody that created, like, a CM Punk or whatever before he was DLC, and, like, you're like, yep, that looks like he belongs in the game. Like, obviously, it's not going to be that, but I'll tell you what, I can make a damn good Booker T in about 10 minutes using Godfather's dreadlocks and Saturn's trunks, and, you know, like, it wasn't hard if you knew kind of, like, the basics, right?
I remember making a very, very good-looking Jerry Lynn in this game.
Yeah.
Because, you know, the faces were kind of there. You had to use your imagination, too. And I think that's the charm of it also.
Well, and not only that, but, like, again... because here's the thing, I didn't play WrestleMania as much as you did, so like I didn't realize some of these features were in there, but like going back to Revenge for a second, like you couldn't really do anything after creating like palette swapped attires for guys. Like you couldn't do anything with movesets. This was the first game I remember like you could do a full created moveset. But was that also available in WrestleMania?
To a certain extent, not as detailed.
Okay, so like this game had, so like again going back to using your imagination, like so like even if the attire didn't look spot on like with Booker T, it's like you can tell those are Perry Saturn's trunks, but like just go with it. But then all of a sudden you're playing as him and you're using moves that he had when he played in WCW Revenge. You're like, oh shit, that's Booker T. All of a sudden you're not even looking at the quote unquote flaws in your created wrestler's attire anymore because he wrestles just like him.
And again, I think there is almost like an innocence to this game. In a good way.
Yeah.
You know, playing with your action figures back in the day, you know, you may not have had every single action figure you had, but you had to use your imagination to, you know, come up with storylines or pretend maybe an action figure was a different guy, so to speak. And this was the same way. You know, I created my ECW guys to the best of my ability, and it kind of looks like Raven. You know, it's a guy with grunge hair and cut-off jeans and a T-shirt. Sure, let's go with it.
Yeah, and they had tattoos you could give them, you know, so like probably Road Dogg's tattoos I would think is probably
bingo.
Or whatever, but
yep,
see,
yeah.
I knew it. So like that's the thing, you could, and again they all have the same, like it's not like there's certain like the later PS2 games, you know, in a check against them is like a lot of the creative wrestlers you can tell are creative wrestlers. They don't look like the in-game models.
Yes.
Whereas in No Mercy they all look the same. So like they'll blend in just as much.
That's a really good point.
You know what I mean? Like nowadays, yes, you can make wrestlers that look like they were in the game. But there was a long time in between where creative wrestlers were never going to look like the in-game guys, and it was obvious, and it looked bad. This is one of those games where, like, no matter what, it's going to look like they belong in the game because they're using the same exact.
Yes, and that's why it's very
So-
popular in the modding community.
It is, and I actually have notes about that because if you go on like YouTube and just type in No Mercy mods, it is
There's
insane
so
what people.
many. There's some really
Dude.
big ones too. Do you have? Because I know what they are.
Well, there's one in particular that somebody made called WCW Feel the
Yes,
Bang.
that's the biggest one. There's Feel the Bang. I want if you want to discuss it, you can, because I know of at least 2 other ones.
Yeah, so I don't know a lot about. I watched a video on it at one point. I tried downloading it myself, and I couldn't get it to run on my computer because there's a little much to it. It's basically if WCW decided to still partner with THQ and Aki to make a game in 2000. Now, granted, WCW was absolutely at its shittiest at this time, but who knows? Maybe this game could have saved the company because what this guy did was he took like modern versions of the WCW wrestlers from the late 90s, from 2000. He added in legends, like he added story mode, create mode. There's so many things he added to make it feel like a brand new game. And from what I understand, it runs pretty freaking well. I think he even did like custom moves and stuff like that, like frame by frame reprogramming of certain moves to match what guys were doing back then. So yeah, I mean, I don't know if is this game just easier to mod? Maybe I don't know. But there's been so many. Like, what are some other mods that you've seen?
The 2 other mods that I know about is they call it WrestleMania X, which is WrestleMania 10. It's supposed to be the new generation.
Okay. And so it's just a new generation.
It's a new generation game, yep. And as I'm saying it, I remember the other 2. The second one I remember is WCW Saturday Night, so it's NWO, pre-Hogan WCW.
Like Surfer Sting and Ron
Bingo,
Simmons
that
and
was
Vader.
exactly what I was going to say. Ron Simmons, Vader, Barry Windham, Lex Luger, Arn Anderson.
Yeah.
Basically 605 on the mothership that day, which was pretty cool. So I like that.
Yeah.
And like the legends in that are like the older like NWA, like Harley Race and Dusty Rhodes and stuff like that are the legends.
Oh, wow.
In that game.
Okay.
And the last one is ECW House Party, which it's called House Party because it's kind of like not one era, it's just ECW. It's everything. So it's Eastern Championship Wrestling.
Okay.
It's ECW Underground to ECW on TNN. So that's why it's like a house party. It's like everybody is there. So that's pretty cool too. So those are the 3 that I know, plus Feel the Bang. It feels like every company has something. WCW has the 2. You know, you figure the pre-Hogan, then Revenge is the Hogan NWO era, and then Feel the Bang is, you know, what would be the Russo, so to speak, era. And then they made the WWF one with WrestleMania 10, which I think is really funny. They redid the intro and they substituted Bret Hart with Steve Austin, so Bret Hart's is in all the cutscenes. But yeah, it's fun. If I could buy them on a cartridge, I would.
Yeah, I totally
100%. I'd buy them all.
I would absolutely do that. And not only that, but I've seen mods of like modern wrestlers. Like I've seen a Ruthless Aggression mod for this game. I've seen a TNA mod. I've seen AJ Styles and Christopher Daniels and some
That's
like I've
crazy.
Seen
So we made a TNA No Mercy mod.
Yes, and what they did was like again there were certain moves like that like AJ the Styles Clash or whatever. They kind of just sort of modified certain moves where they just kind of tweaked where their body parts were.
Crazy what these guys can do.
I know, and it's fantastic. So I love that so much because it is. I wish it was easier to play these mods because I absolutely would. In the meantime, go on YouTube, just type in No Mercy mods and just
have a field day. We'll see you next week.
Yeah, there's so many cool things.
Yeah.
All right, are we leaving it? I don't know. I feel like we could go on about this game forever, but like I also feel like we covered.
We could, but I think we also need, because I touched on the roster. I think we need to talk about where wrestling in general was. You know, we're talking November of 2000.
Yes.
The bubble's about to burst.
You think so? When do you consider the bubble bursting as far as popularity?
I don't mean in terms of popularity. I mean in terms of
Okay.
like, hey, two major companies on national TV
Oh.
are about to go out
Gotcha.
of business soon.
Yeah, that's fair.
You
Okay.
figure we're in November of 2000, ECW's gone in 60 days.
That's a
They're
good
gone.
point. And then
And then WCW's
It-
gone in what, about 4 months from now?
about 4 months in March.
Yeah.
So I remember vividly in November 2000 what was going on in WCW because that was really when I was invested in it. Scott Steiner just beat Booker T in a steel cage match at WCW Mayhem for the World Championship for his first world title.
ECW just stopped being on TNN, and you could tell the end was coming.
Yeah.
You could tell that they weren't running shows as much. The production took a step down from when they were on TNN, and it was pretty much the last gasp. So, yeah, the bubble in terms of availability and work for the guys and the gals was about to really take a major hit.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. No, that's fair. And then in WWF, like it was.
Kurt Angle was
hotter
about
than ever.
Kurt Angle in Albany was about to win the WWF title. I can't. I
Well.
just gave it away who the champion was.
right,
well, we
we'll-
could do
we'll
the
come
other.
back
We could do
to
the
it.
other two companies.
That's right. Okay. Fair enough. Yeah. We'll test you on those. Well, of course, I just gave away Scott Steiner, so never mind.
I didn't even hear that. So
Oh, okay. You weren't even paying attention. But yes, wrestling was. This was the bubble was about to burst as far as competition, but in terms of popularity, this was. I mean.
no, I mean WrestleMania 17 is coming down the pipe, and it's
that's
thi-
true.
This is. I think we talked about this in another episode. Our very first episode we did was WrestleMania 2000.
Yes.
And I said, you would ask me, is this a definitive Attitude Era game? I says, no. Even though this game is called WrestleMania 2000, it's not the 2000 roster. It's like the late 98, early 99 roster. Like for example, like I mentioned the Hardys and the Acolytes and stuff. Like, Too Cool was towards the tail end of the Attitude Era. They were
That's
very,
right,
very
yeah.
popular. In WrestleMania 2000, they're too much. Who the hell
That's right.
cares about them?
Rikishi's not in it.
Nobody cared about them.
Yeah.
Rikishi's another one. Rikishi wasn't in WrestleMania 2000. So this is it. This is the roster that people remember and identify with for the quote-unquote glory days of the Attitude Era. And especially taking your WCW guys and my ECW guys and putting them in this game, just like, whoa. Because WCW games at this point, after post-Revenge, they were all shit. So you're getting core WCW guys in this game, and ECW was trying to put out a wrestling game, but taking their guys and their top guys and putting them in this game, it just made this game over the top.
It did. You're absolutely right. So at this point, would you say you were like, were you of the three companies? I think I know which one is third. But like, what was your favorite company to watch around this time? Was it ECW, or were you still like hardcore WWF fan watching everything?
Like at this exact time,
So November 2000.
I was still clutching onto the fact that maybe ECW would do something.
So how I was with WCW.
No, but here's the thing: you had still a national television.
That's true.
You
That's a
still
good
had
point.
two national televised shows. They were shit, but you knew Monday night and at this point Wednesday night you had your shows, and you had
Yes.
funding. Unless you watch Dark Side of the Ring, which is like, it really didn't have that much funding. I was watching, at MSG. I was back to the MSG at midnight on Saturdays. I'm like, this
Yeah.
isn't fun. Like, he took
Step back.
5 steps forward and 15 steps back right now.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. And then, and I wasn't watching WWF at all at this time. Like,
I was watching them, but I felt like it was my company. It was a little engine that shouldn't have been.
Right. Yeah. That's true. Man, you're right. I miss I don't know. Even if I I am very excited for WWE to go to Netflix because I'm hoping that'll make me watch.
Hope it's better than
Raw.
the live stream of Tyson's fight, which people are saying was awful, and there's actually lawsuits going on. People saying I subscribed and I couldn't watch it.
Yeah, I saw that too.
And they got an NFL game coming up on Christmas, so
boy,
Netflix
yeah,
really better cross their fingers. They do not do bad with that.
I'm hoping they work out. I'm hoping that all this is so that they can work out the kinks for WWE when they finally come in January. Because I will watch. I'm telling you, I will watch Raw as often as I can, even if it's not going to be live.
But
I will
that's
watch
what I was
it.
going to say.
Like,
Wouldn't you just watch? I'd rather watch it the next day.
Well, there's no commercial. I think it's going to be on late. That's the other thing too.
Yeah, here we are at 9 o'clock, and now I got my second win. I'm ready to watch Raw.
Yeah.
I don't watch any wrestling live anymore. Unless I'm just flipping through I have cable. I'm old. Unless I'm flipping through the channels, and believe it or not, the one I watch the most is freaking Rampage. Because, it's Friday, I have a little bit of energy. The premium events, the pay-per-views, I don't watch them live. I don't even watch WrestleMania live. I watch WrestleMania.
Oh,
no,
really?
I watch WrestleMania Saturday and Sunday, WrestleMania Sunday on Monday. I slip through the fluff. I don't need...
Yeah.
Especially with WrestleMania, I even as an extreme casual fan right now, in terms of watching the product, I know what's going on.
Yeah.
Survivor Series is maybe this week, maybe next week. I don't know when. I don't need a 15-minute video recapping the Bloodline. I know what's going on. Not even watching, I know what's going on. I know what's his name has an obsession with Solo or something like that. He keeps saying, I love you, Solo. Whatever his name is. Jacob Fatu. So I don't watch anything live.
Okay. So, So, like I said, and then now with AEW coming to Max, that's another one. Like, maybe I'll start watching. And we've talked about this. Maybe we always talk about doing like a Patreon with Patreon podcasts. Maybe we start doing head-to-head comparison. I don't know. We'll see. It'll depend. But anyway, we have the option because it'll be easier to watch the program.
Yeah.
I'm interested. I'm genuinely interested. I think the product is great to watch. Anytime I do watch any matches, they're fun. They're well made. They're well produced, not well made. Well produced. It looks like a good product.
And
so
I think the fact that if we could watch it next day and skip the commercials, that makes me want to watch it more than anything else.
Yes, absolutely, 100%. All right, one more thing about No Mercy, and then we're going to score it, and then we're going to scratch the itch with other games, okay? So there's one more thing, and a buddy of mine texted me and said, listen, No Mercy was a great game, but there was one glaring flaw that they did fix later, but it was a glaring flaw when the game was first released. Do you remember what it was?
No.
It was the save glitch on early cartridges.
I heard about this. Yes.
Or essentially with like very little whatever, like your save data would be totally erased. And this was before you could just put out a patch on a game, right? Like, no. Like if you had that card, you were screwed. And like I'm sure people did, like returned it in droves. They did release a later version of the game, like with a fix, like they fixed it so that the future cartridges didn't have that issue, and the one I owned didn't have the issue. So obviously, exactly, yeah. Which again, shout out to the fact that it was a black cartridge. Love that. Love the color, because WrestleMania 2000 was a black
And
cartridge.
so was
as well,
ECW.
right?
Yeah, they all use black.
Love that. Anyway, so I had to shout that out. It was like the one tarnish on this game. They fixed it, so it's not really a long-lasting tarnish, but it's something that's worth pointing out. All right, so here we go. It is time. I don't have a name for this segment, but essentially we're going to go ahead and score this on 5 categories out of 10 to see how close we can get to 100. So the first category here, Lou, is on a scale of 1 to 10. What do you want to go? Steve Weisers.
Meltzer stars.
Okay, here we go. Out of 10 Meltzer stars, how many stars are you going to give the graphics in this game?
On an N64 cartridge from 24 years ago, give it a 7.
I already have all my scores written down for the record, and I gave it a 7.
You know what I really liked?
Absolutely.
I liked the Backlash entrance set.
Oh yeah, with the big metal
hooks. That was
Yes.
amazing. I love that set.
Oh,
That was like I
yeah.
played that probably the most.
Well, and there was a rumor that was going to be their next game.
Yes,
was Backlash.
yes, that was supposed to be. It was supposed to be the next year's game was Backlash.
And then they went to other consoles, which is fine. All right, up next, out of 10 Meltzer stars, what do you give it for replayability?
Oh, it's a 10 out of 10.
Yeah,
It's
I give
yeah,
it
it's
a
a
10.
10.
I swear to God, I'm looking. Yeah, because for several reasons. One is just because of the sheer roster size, the creative wrestlers, but the story modes, right? You could go in and play. You could just go back in and play a new story mode and just lose a certain match, and you get a whole new set of options. Did you? But I never asked. So, like, did you have anyone that was like stupid that you played? Like you mentioned, you joked with Taka. Did you actually do that, where you took Taka through the world title picture?
Maybe I did. I must have done something silly like that. You know, it's interesting to do though. Is as time went on, the guys that you would take, like mid-card guys, Jericho, Guerrero, Chris the Crippler, because you can't say his last name because you get flags. Those guys would be European title, Intercontinental title. A couple years later, they were in the main events. You can go back and put them in the main event. So
in the world titles. All right, yeah, that's a good call. All right, as far as plot goes, now this is, again, as a wrestling game, it's not like a story-driven game, but we were just talking about, of course, story mode. So out of 10 Meltzer stars.
Yeah, it's a 10. It's a 10
Okay.
because there's so much you could do. Like you just said, you could take not to diminish Taka Michinoku, who is a great wrestler, who does have a televised match against Triple H for the world title, to his credit.
Yes, he
But
does.
you could do something like that. Like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to take Taka to be the world champion. You know what? The Rock's down on his luck. He's going to go after the hardcore title.
Yeah.
You know, make a makeshift tag team where the Bubba and Jeff Hardy go for the tag titles.
Yeah, you could. Yeah, and it's... So I gave it a 9. I think because it's still a wrestling game first and story mode second, so I didn't want to give it a perfect 10. I completely see why a 10 is justified. I had to give it a 9. So, all right, gameplay out of 10 Meltzer stars.
An 8. What did you give it?
I gave it a 10.
You gave it a 10?
I did, because I do feel this is the best version of, because I don't consider things like entrances part of gameplay. So, like, I feel like this had the most, and it worked. I mean, there was a little sluggishness, but it's not really noticeable unless you're playing giant, multi-man matches all the time.
Yeah.
So I did give it a 10. But an 8, 8 is certainly not a bad score by any means. So, what was it that gave, like, as far as the so what do you feel like, where does it lose 2 points on for you?
It loses the points because the entrances, when I'm playing the game, it looks dark. It just doesn't look like, it doesn't have that bright, vivid feel to it, and there is a little bit of slowdown in the game. So it's not bad. I think that's one of the points where just a regular match, I'm playing it, it's faster in WrestleMania, it's brighter in WrestleMania, I do get the full experience, especially if I'm not playing it all the time.
Right.
It just gives me that little extra piece.
Yep, absolutely. Okay. And then finally, out of 10 Meltzer stars, what do you give the sound /
Minus 5 stars. No. It was sound.
Yeah.
I figured the sound was pretty much the same. It was pretty much the same. It's tough. That actually is the toughest thing, because the gameplay itself is still good, no matter what.
Yes.
The roster is still good no matter what. The sound, compared to now, is fucking atrocious compared to now.
Well, the entrance music is, but I don't know. I feel like the sound effects still are
pretty good. So, taking into consideration when this game came out,
yeah.
I would say maybe give it an 8 also, because again, the
Okay.
music didn't get better than WrestleMania. The Titantron videos didn't get better. The sound effects were still good. It's just it didn't. That was the one thing I feel like it stayed the same
Yeah.
for the most part. And it's not a bad thing. It's still a very good thing.
No, 100%. And I also gave it an 8, by the way, because I agree. I think it sounds fun, but there's certain things that are dated about it. I agree. But yeah, by no means a bad score. So, all right, let me go ahead and do the tallies, which I've learned long ago. Just have an Excel spreadsheet ready to go and just
Wow.
put the numbers in. I know. I'm prepared this
Numbers
time.
and data.
Out of a score of 100 Meltzer stars, this game is bringing home an admirable 87 out of 100.
Okay. I feel like that's
That's a
good.
it's a B plus.
Yeah, but this game's legacy is more than a B plus.
Well, maybe if you didn't give the gameplay an 8 instead of a 10, and maybe if you weren't so selfish.
What?
Lou.
An 8 is good.
Okay, well this is better than an 8. This is technically an 8.7
So
out of 10.
you know what? If we're doing Meltzer stars, you should say it's in the Tokyo Dome, and then the 8 would turn into a 10.
All right, there you go. So this game is an 87 out of 100, but if it was if it was in the Tokyo Dome, it would
97.
It'd be a 97 out of 100.
Oh, yeah.
It gets an extra 10 stars
Yes.
automatically. All right, beautiful. All right, well then, before we talk about pop culture memories, let's talk about other games you can play today that may scratch the itch. And the first one I'm going to recommend, it's kind of a tie. For the roster, I'm going to recommend WWE 2K24 because you can download anything
Sure.
from this era easily and have it feel like the
Yeah.
game. From a modern gameplay perspective, I'm going to go with AEW Fight.
I agree.
And it's not a perfect match for it by any means. We played it together. It doesn't feel exactly the same, but it probably was me just needing to get used to it. But you could definitely tell they were trying to go for that No Mercy feel.
Yes.
There's 2 more games I have here that I recommend for different itch scratching. For the overall itch scratching, I can't say yet for sure if it will, but hopefully it does. Ultra Pro Wrestling coming out. They said this year. Now I'm thinking it's probably going to be next year. An indie developer, it's like him and like a few other people. They're basically building a No Mercy-like game from the ground up. It doesn't feature any. Actually, I take it back. It features a shit ton of licensed wrestlers. But Lou, you're going to be excited because it's a lot of ECW wrestlers
Nice.
that they're putting in it, like Meanie and RVD and like I think Dreamer maybe, or no, the BWO was in
Yeah.
it. Like it's like crazy.
Nice.
I think Raven, Saturn. So like you've got all these actual wrestlers, and then of course just a bunch of originals. But the whole point is that it's going to feel like you're playing an N64 wrestling game with a modern polish. So I'm excited. It looks fantastic. So yeah, Ultra Pro Wrestling coming out hopefully soon. And then finally, from a customization perspective, I love giving this game credit whenever I can. Fire Pro Wrestling
Tokyo
Pro on
Dome.
PS4. See, there you go. That's going to get you your stars. I love Fire Pro Wrestling. It is an amazing game. It is nothing like any other wrestling game you've played. But if you just want to watch a match between your favorite guys and customize like whatever, like it's one of the best wrestler create modes of all
And you
time.
can head over to our YouTube page and see us do some commentary and some really crazy shenanigan wrestling matches.
Absolutely. If you want to see just how crazy you can get the customization in Fire Pro Wrestling World, go to Generation S Podcast on YouTube and go to the playlist Generation S Pro Wrestling. We haven't done one in a long time, but we did commentary on a few fantasy matches that I put together with a bunch of
Slimer has no
characters.
legs, and he's fighting.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we have a handicap match. Slimer against the 4 Ghostbusters. We've got Peter Griffin versus Homer Simpson. We've got the TV Dad Battle Royal. We've got Megatron versus Optimus Prime. It's wild. So, like, and you hearing me say this going, how could they possibly? And then when you watch the match, you're like, well, that's how they possibly. It looks really good. I think we even did, like, a handicap match where it was, like, the Ninja Turtles versus Shredder, Krang, Bebop, and I guess it was
Yeah,
fun.
it was elimination. Survivor Series, just in time for the...
It was absolutely. That's right. All right, well, then let's go ahead and shift over to pop culture milestones, things that were happening in November of 2000 in the world of music, film, television, sports. Let's start with music here. So, actually, this is interesting. So, you ever heard of the band called the Beatles?
I've heard of them.
Yeah, that's kind of a big deal. They released a compilation album called One. on November 13th of 2000. It featured every single #1 single released by the band in the UK and the US. So that's pretty cool. And then also released in November of 2000, Black and Blue by the Backstreet Boys.
Oh, boy.
Including such hits as The Shape of My Heart. It solidified the Backstreet Boys' status as a pop superstar band, one of the top pop acts of their time. And if you're a boy band fan, I mean, it's either Backstreet Boys or NSYNC, so you have a decision to make. In the world of film, coming out November 17th of 2000, we had How the Grinch Stole Christmas, the live-action one with Jim Carrey.
Love that.
I'm really sad that it's 24 years old at this point, because that movie still feels like a new novel concept.
Yeah.
But yeah. Do you watch that movie every Christmas? or-
I don't go out of my way, but if it is on, I will watch it.
Yeah. Okay, fair enough. I think we try to put it on every year if we can. I usually fall asleep by the end because we're usually watching it at night and I'm tired. But, anyway,
You sound like we're old.
old.
Tired for the podcast, tired for the Grinch.
Well, listen, yeah, man, we're not spring
I mean,
chicken.
I tried to get through the NXT thing at the ECW arena, and that was tough. But only
You fell
because
asleep? Yeah.
no, I didn't fall asleep. But I had my marching orders in my brain to watch this, but it was tough.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, releasing just 2 weeks prior in November 3rd of 2000, Charlie's Angels, starring Cameron Diaz, Drew Barrymore, and Lucy Liu was released. That was actually a fun movie.
Yes,
I remember watching that.
Terrible game.
The game is god awful.
Yeah.
We can talk about
we
that.
could.
But the movie was fun.
Yeah.
Really loved the movie. Of course, based on the 1970s television series. That was a big thing back then. All these like 70s shows and movies were being remade into movies. Like Dukes of Hazzard was another one.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway. Television. Here we go. Premiering just 1 month prior in October, so close enough. Gilmore Girls. Did you? I'm sure you never watched that.
Negative.
No, but I've dated plenty of girls, including my current girl, my wife, who loved this show back in the day. So, and then let's see what else. Well, there was the election coverage of the 2000 election, but who cares? It was George W. Bush, Al Gore.
W.
Yep,
Big W.
that was the thing. Now, shifting gears over to the world of sports. In late October, something pretty big happened.
It's over my shoulder. Look at that.
That's right.
My banner in
New
my
York
room has the Yankees winning in 2000.
Yeah. So for people living in New York, it was a big deal. For people living anywhere else in the country,
Didn't give a shit.
no one gave a shit.
Nope.
No. It was the Subway Series, Yankees versus Mets, and it was
No, it was the big.
God,
It was freaking massive.
an ass whooping though.
Oh,
My
it was.
God.
Yeah.
They got destroyed.
Yeah.
And this was their last of their winning streak, right? Because
Yeah.
they didn't win in 01. This was their last win for a while.
Yeah, they went lost in 01, and then they were out of it. They lost in 01, they lost in 03, and then
Yeah.
they were out of it to 2009.
And then that's when they won it. And that's the last time they won it, isn't it?
Yeah, because apparently New York can't beat LA in anything. Rangers versus
Nope.
Kings, out in 5. Yankees versus Dodgers, out in 5.
Yep. So, all right. As we alluded to at the start of the show, the WWF champion at the time was Kurt Angle.
Kurt Angle, yep.
And do you know when he won the title?
He won it at No Mercy
See, there it is.
at the Pepsi Arena in Albany, New York.
Defeating who?
The Rock.
Good man. Okay.
And then
Who was, ECW champion in November of 2000.
it changed hands in November. So
Okay.
going into November was Jerry Lynn, and he lost it in a double Jeopardy match. I swear, folks, I'm not reading this. He lost in a double Jeopardy match at the November to Remember 2000. It was Lynn, Carino, Sandman, and Just Incredible. And Steve
Okay.
Carino won the title. So he was the third to last ECW champion.
Okay.
And the WCW champion, I actually do remember, was Scott Steiner.
Yes. Do you remember who he beat?
Probably beat Booker T.
It was Booker T.
And
Yep.
it's so random. When I moved, I found all my old VHS tapes, and I actually did order, for some reason, I did order Mayhem 2000.
Yes.
I
Good
don't
times.
remember why I did it. I guess I was just a glutton for punishment, but I did it.
Listen, I will say this. 99 WCW is bad. I'm watching Reliving the War. It's bad. But I will say, there was something about the end of WCW that if they had stuck around, they could have built something around it. With Scott Steiner as world champion, you had Booker T in there in the main event picture. All the old timers were basically gone.
Here's the thing: if WCW was able to stay around, and literally all they needed to do was stay around for a couple more months, and ECW folded, a lot of those guys were going to go.
Yeah.
You basically would have had a merger of the invasion angle would have been in real life. I mean, they would have not invaded WWF, but all those guys that were in the alliance would have been in WCW.
Yeah. And it would have brought in ECW fans.
Exactly. And even if they just had the one show that kept Thunder, like they were rumored to do, just Thunder on TBS, it would have been great. But then we would not have had TNA.
Nope. Say la vie. All right. Well, not bad for a Wednesday night discussion where both of us are just dog-ass tired.
I'm not tired now. I'm ready to play some No Mercy.
Right. Well, there you go, man. Go boot that up. We just talked for an hour and 15 minutes, Luke.
I said maybe we can get a half hour out.
Yeah, one of our longer episodes, man. All right, well, that's going to wrap it up, guys. So thank you so much for joining us. We are heading into Thanksgiving. To be honest with you, we're going to try to get something out for next week, but with it being Thanksgiving, no promises. But, Lou, do you know what we're going to be covering next week?
We're going to switch gears, a lot of gears, and we're going to talk about something that you mentioned that you did want to talk about. We're going to talk about Super Mario Brothers
Trace. Yes. In my opinion, greatest Super Mario Brothers game of all time. And I have my reasons
Second
for that.
best.
We'll talk. Second best. Whatever. No, I don't agree. But we'll talk about that next time. I don't want to say next week and get you all excited. We're planning to get it out next week. We're going to see what life throws at us with it being Thanksgiving week and the kids home from school and all that stuff. But thank you guys so much for listening. As always, make sure you're following us on social media over on YouTube at Generation S Podcast, on Instagram and Threads at Backwards Compatible Podcast. And hey, listen, two things real quick. One, shoot us a text message, okay? We've had a couple of great listener text messages in here. Very loyal listeners, and thank you guys, Mark, and there's a couple others, I think Mike as well. But if you want to just connect with us, we'd love to hear from you. We truly would. And then, if you could, this is the other thing, I never think to ask this much anymore, but go leave us a review on iTunes or on Spotify. The more reviews we get, I think the more visible the show is, so that other people can find the show and check it out for themselves. Now that we're technically 31 episodes in on this show, but then also Generation S before it, we're like 118 episodes total that you can go back through and check out. Yeah, it's insane. So plenty to listen to there if you want to listen to anything 90s and then more recently anything retro gaming. But yeah, we'll be back next time talking Super Mario Brothers 3. And until then, happy Thanksgiving if we don't hear from you. And we'll talk to you soon.
Goodbye.